Robert Saleh's top candidates for the OC job were revealed on Thursday, and my number one, Kliff Kingsbury, made the list. I'm going to break down a massive day of Tennessee Titans news on today's edition of Locked On Titans.
You are Locked On Titans, your daily Tennessee Titans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Titans podcast. I am your host, Tyler Rowland, Titans fans. Today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Every game day during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. On today's show, again, a massive day of Tennessee Titans coaching news. We got an actual official list of candidates for the offensive coordinator position, and boy, I love that I was wrong. Kliff Kingsbury is on the list. I'll break down all of the candidates that were named. Also, the Titans made some big changes to the coaching staff behind the scenes, firing Dennard Wilson and Nick Holz, but they're keeping a couple people around as well. I'll tell you who they are. And the hire is actually official. The Titans have announced it. Everybody just relax. Before we get into all of that, do want to thank you for making Locked On Titans your first listen each and every day, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. Make sure you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day. Speaking of every day, shout out to my everydayers out there, tuning in Monday through Friday. Couldn't do it without you guys. If you aren't an everydayer, you need to be one. We're going to get more hires. The staff is going to take shape. Then we're going to transition into roster building mode, talk about free agency, the draft, all that. Make sure you stay locked in with the Locked On Titans podcast. But with all that being said, again, we got an actual official list of coordinator candidates for the Tennessee Titans on Thursday from NFL Network's Tom Pelissero. And Pelissero said this, quote, "The Titans continue to work through offensive coordinator options with Kliff Kingsbury, Arthur Smith, Brian Daboll, Adam Strunk, and Bobby Slowick among the potential options per sources. All have OC experience as Robert Saleh looks for the right man to work with quarterback Cam Ward." Let me say this. I was wrong. I did not think that Kliff Kingsbury was coming to the Titans. We had heard reports about Kliff Kingsbury being interested in working with other people. We have heard reports of Kliff Kingsbury being interested in other teams. The Titans were supposed to have requested Kliff Kingsbury for a head coaching interview. He never took that interview. So in my mind, based on him turning down the Titans for the head coaching job, I'm like, well, why then would he want to be the Titans offensive coordinator? There's no personal connection between Robert Saleh and Kliff Kingsbury. So yesterday when we discussed it, I said, he's not coming. Mike McDaniels is gone. Kliff Kingsbury's not going to come here. It's down to Brian Daboll. And by God, I could not be more happy to get it wrong, because Kliff Kingsbury, outside of Mike McDaniel, was my best option. I like Kliff Kingsbury more than I like Brian Daboll. Like, again, after Mike McDaniel, who was the slam dunk, I went straight to Kliff. Why is that the case? Well, number one, Kliff Kingsbury has been a head coach before. So he has a head coach mentality with the way that he runs the offensive side of the ball. And when you have Robert Saleh, who is going to focus very hard on the defensive side of the ball, we have already heard reports that Robert Saleh wants a CEO level offensive coach, because he doesn't want to have to worry too much about the offensive side of the ball. He wants somebody that can truly run an offensive operation from the top down, okay? And that is Kliff Kingsbury, who has, again, already been a head coach. So outside of the experience of Kliff Kingsbury, you go to his quarterback development. He got the best out of Kyler Murray. He got the best rookie quarterback season of all time out of Jaden Daniels. And I will continue to drive this point home. The air raid system is what Cam Ward ran at Miami. Who knows the air raid system better than Kliff Kingsbury, who ran that system with Patrick Mahomes at Texas Tech. The fact that Kliff Kingsbury was named means that Kingsbury is interested, means that Saleh is interested in him. That list would not have been put out there, and Kliff Kingsbury's name would not have been mentioned if the Titans didn't seriously consider him as an option and if he wasn't seriously considering them. And at this point in time, Kliff Kingsbury has not signed anywhere else. Again, there were reports that, Davis Webb, the offensive coordinator for the Broncos, Kliff Kingsbury coached him in college. So Kingsbury might want to go with him if he gets a big job, or Joe Brady has a connection to Kliff Kingsbury. So if Joe Brady were to get the head coaching job for the Buffalo Bills, maybe Kliff Kingsbury would go there to work with him. But I'm sorry, why would you want to go to these places where Davis Webb or Joe Brady is going to call the plays? That's why they're being hired as coaches, as young offensive coordinators, so that they can call plays. If Kliff Kingsbury isn't calling plays, what the heck is he doing here? Okay? So I think that Kliff Kingsbury absolutely would take the Tennessee Titans job now that we know there is some sort of connection there. And again, it said the Titans are working through their options, which means they're contacting these guys' agents. They're setting up interviews behind the scenes. But again, Kliff Kingsbury, my number one option, could not be more happy to get that wrong. The Kliff Kingsbury connection has begun. He is my number one offensive coordinator candidate. But after that, yes, Brian Daboll is my next option, and we talked about it. Work with Josh Allen, work with Daniel Jones, got a playoff victory out of him, got the best out of Jackson Dart. And I retweeted a video on Twitter of Brian Daboll coaching with the New York Giants, and he's just such a fierce, intense coach that is in your face and demonstrative and demands the best out of his players. That is exactly what the Tennessee Titans need. That is exactly what Cam Ward needs to fix up his mechanics and be more consistent. And that does constitute as a CEO level coach, since he does have head coaching experience. Okay? Now, the other name that was on there was Adams Strunk, who, again, I got to say this. I got to pat myself on the back a little bit. I put together a list of offensive coordinator candidates for you guys, and every single name that is on this official reported list from Tom Pelissero is a name that I mentioned to you. That's why you listen to Locked On Titans. You are as prepared, more prepared than any other Tennessee Titans fans that you know, because I'm getting you ready to go. But with that being said, Adams Strunk, the Green Bay Packers offensive coordinator, Matt LaFleur and Robert Saleh are also best friends. I said he's got a real good relationship with Mike McDaniel. He is best friends with Matt LaFleur as well. He was the best man in Matt LaFleur's wedding. Matt LaFleur was the best man in his wedding. Okay? So they have a great connection, which means even though Strunk is an offensive coordinator for the Packers, and he may come over and be an offensive coordinator for the Titans, Matt LaFleur is going to let him do that. Like, that's his best friend. And Adam Strunk is never going to get a chance to call plays if he doesn't go somewhere else and be an offensive coordinator. Now, the thing about Strunk is he has never been a play caller before. He doesn't have play calling experience. But again, the connection between Saleh and LaFleur, I do not believe that Saleh would hire Strunk if he was worried about his ability to be involved in play calling. I'm sure that Strunk is helping Matt LaFleur develop game plans, call plays, situational stuff. Hey, in the red zone, I really like this, Matt. We really like this in the red zone. That sort of stuff happens all the time. And one thing that I really like about Strunk is he has coached with Robert Saleh before in San Francisco, and he has an offensive line background. The Green Bay Packers have had great offensive line coaching for years. Like, Green Bay can take any of these guys and turn them into great offensive linemen. Like, it's just crazy how good the Green Bay O-line is year in and year out, despite the injuries, the change. Strunk is at the core of that. He is an offensive line guy at his heart. He is a run game coordinator as well, and I think that would pair very, very... And look at what Matt LaFleur has done with Jordan Love and Malik Willis. Like, Strunk is part of that as well. So Strunk would be very high on my list. Bobby Slowik, pass game coordinator, Miami Dolphins, offensive coordinator for C.J. Stroud's rookie year. Slowik is definitely down on my list compared to Kingsbury and Daboll. But I think Slowik would still be an excellent pick. And again, he has a connection to Robert Saleh. He was a defensive quality control coach for Robert Saleh in San Francisco quite some time ago. So the same reasons I like Bobby Slowik as a head coach candidate a couple years ago are the same reasons I like him now. He's got experience on the defensive and offensive side of the ball, and that makes him ideally suited to get the best out of a young quarterback. Now, Arthur Smith was on that list as well. In my notes, I wrote down yuck. I cannot think of a worse coach for Cam Ward than Arthur Smith. But Robert Saleh wants a CEO, basically head coach level offensive coordinator, and Arthur Smith is that. He is that. He was the CEO of the offensive side of the ball for Pittsburgh. He has been a head coach. So from that standpoint, I understand. Now, Clay Kubiak, the offensive coordinator from San Francisco, and Mike LaFleur, who was the offensive coordinator for the Rams, but was the offensive coordinator with Robert Saleh in New York, neither of them were on that list. So I think what that tells you is Los Angeles and San Francisco aren't letting those guys go. But quite frankly, I don't like those guys better than the other guys I mentioned on this list. You know, I had Stenovich, Slowik, Kubiak, and LaFleur in the same group, in the same tier. So, you know, with the two better options, Kingsbury and Daboll still out there, if the Titans could get one of those guys, we are absolutely cooking with gas. And I know a lot of people are worried about Brian Daboll taking the Buffalo Bills head coaching job, but we've all been concerned with don't let him out of the building. Don't let him out of the building. That's how it's worked for Harbaugh, Stefanski, Hafley, Saleh. Well, Brian Daboll completed his interview with Buffalo and left the building. So that's a good sign that Brian Daboll could be on his way to Tennessee. But with that being said, we got big news on guys who got fired by the Titans on Thursday and a couple of guys on the coaching staff who are sticking around. Do want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Intuit TurboTax. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax full service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert start to finish without the stress or the guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. They're going to handle everything from W-2s to self-employed forms and work to get you every deduction. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, just file by February 28th. Again, take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. Titans fans, let's continue today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. Again, a massive news day for the Tennessee Titans. I talked about the report we got in the morning with an official list of offensive coordinator candidates. Guys, I know I've gone over the candidates quite a bit this week, but we got the official list. We got to take a look at it, right? So let me know who you want out of that official list for the offensive coordinator spot down below. But now we got to talk about some staff changes the Titans are making. They got rid of a couple of guys from last year's staff. They are keeping a couple of guys from last year's staff. And quite honestly, a lot of it is stuff that you should have expected if you were an everydayer here with the Locked On Titans podcast. Now, speaking of everydayer, you guys got to join the Locked On Titans Everydayer Club. Absolutely fantastic conversations going down in the group chat right now. All you got to do is go to lockedontitans.supercast.com or click the link down in the description below. It's $5 a month. You're going to get access to a Locked On Titans group chat where we talk about local media gossip and free agency, the draft, all kinds of different stuff. You're going to get ad-free versions of the podcast. No advertisements. You get access to a Locked On Titans merch store, and I'm going to have some cool stuff for you guys lined up. priority mailbag questions, all of that. And use the promo code SALEH, S-A-L-E-H, SALEH. You're going to get your first month free. If you're a real everydayer, you're going to be in the Locked On Titans Everydayer Club. But with that being said, Dennard Wilson fired. Nick Holz fired. And I tried to tell you guys about Dennard Wilson. I tried to warn you, and I still, somehow, I'm like, are you guys not listening to the podcast? Are you turning it off early? What are you doing? You're missing valuable information. I have told everyone who could listen, Dennard Wilson is going to be fired. It is illogical that they would keep him around. He does not run the same scheme as Robert Saleh. Saleh comes from the Seattle Seahawks Legion of Boom type scheme. Now, he has evolved his defense. He isn't just a heavy cover three nonstop defense like the Seattle Seahawks Legion of Boom was. All they did was run cover three. They had the two big corners on the outside, like Richard Sherman, for example, and they would cover the boundary with their length and their size and play deep third. They had Earl Thomas back deep as the center fielder to cover up everything. They had Cam Chancellor as the hard-hitting safety coming downhill to play in the box. That is what they did in Seattle, and Saleh came from that system. That is what he knows. Now, he has played more cover four as of late because the NFL requires match cover four at this point. But the point of that is not Dennard Wilson's system. Dennard Wilson is a 3-4 disguise coverage look, multiple cover four, cover six, quarter, half, mix in some man. Like, Dennard Wilson is more of a multiple defensive scheme with a 5-man front base. Robert Saleh is a 4-man front base with more of a cover 3, cover 4 zone speciality. So that in itself made no sense at all. They run totally different systems and schemes. It was never going to be a fit. But on top of that, I know that a lot of Titans fans aren't high on Dennard Wilson, but I think Dennard Wilson is a good defensive coordinator. And Dennard Wilson will want to call plays. Dennard Wilson isn't going to want to be Nick Holz for Robert Saleh. Dennard Wilson wants to go be himself and be Dennard Wilson. So it just never made sense at all that Dennard Wilson would be retained. And I've been telling you guys all week long that that wasn't going to happen. And when we looked at defensive coaches, I said, hey, he's not going to be kept around if they hire a defensive coach. It just doesn't make any sense. Now, I get why people like Dennard Wilson. And Jeffrey Simmons saying that Dennard Wilson was the only coach that was really pushing people hard in the locker room and holding people accountable. That makes me like Dennard Wilson even more. Okay, I think Dennard Wilson is a good coach. But you know what? Nick Holz ain't. Nick Holz is not a very good coach. Nick Holz was underqualified for the offensive coordinator position. That was a buddy hire by Brian Callahan. And a lot of you guys like to say, oh, well, this guy liked the Brian Callahan hire. I don't listen to... Well, I didn't like the Nick Holz hire. I gave that a C out of my grades when we got Brian Callahan's initial coaching staff. I never liked the Nick Holz hire. Never made sense to me. Wasn't on board with that. And both of those guys, Wilson and Holz, boom, they are fired. Remember, guys, when Brian Callahan was hired and hired these people, they got long-term contracts too that matched Brian Callahan. They didn't get a 1-year deal, a 2-year deal. They got 3, 4, 5-year deals, just like Brian Callahan got. So right now, and we'll talk about this in a second because the Robert Saleh hire is official now by the Tennessee Titans. They finally announced it themselves. But a lot of that is, hey, we got to fire these other people who Robert Saleh does not want. And Wilson and Holz have been thrown out. And I wouldn't expect almost anybody else, other than the people we're about to talk about now, to be retained either. Robert Saleh is going to bring in his own people. This isn't like what the Atlanta Falcons are doing. The Falcons basically kept their whole coaching staff and just said, we're going to hire Kevin Stefanski as the offensive head coach, and he's going to bring Tommy Rees, his play caller, with him, and Bill Callahan to run the O-line. Basically, let's get the offensive staff of the Cleveland Browns and match it with the defensive staff of the Atlanta Falcons, and we think we'll be good. I think that's peculiar, is what I would say. But that's not what the Tennessee Titans are doing here. There will be massive overhaul. But with that being said, there are at least 2 Tennessee Titans coaches from Brian Callahan's staff who are being held over on Robert Saleh's staff, and I think that it could get as high as 3 or 4. The two that we know right now, based on reports, that are going to be back, number one, and everybody get your hands ready to clap. Bones Fassel. Bones Fassel's contract runs through 2027. So the Titans would have had to fire him for him to leave. And I don't think Bones Fassel wants to leave. I genuinely believe him. I don't know. The new kids are saying low keenly. I don't, it makes no sense to me. It doesn't roll off the tongue. I hate you young whippersnappers with your new lingo. I'm getting old. But Bones Fassel is under contract and he's going to be back. There's no concern. There's no worry. It is confirmed. Bones Fassel will stay. And what he did with the Tennessee Titans special teams unit, how could you ever justify letting that man go? And you guys want to know something funny? You know who is a special teams coach for the San Francisco 49ers right now? Colt Anderson. Hilarious, right? I was a little nervous about that one, but that is great news. Now, the other news is that Tony Oden, who was the Titans' defensive back coach and passing game coordinator on defense, he is going to be back. Oden worked with Robert Saleh in San Francisco before he got the job as the New York Jets head coach. And then he worked with Robert Saleh the entire time with the Jets. Guys, I said this on yesterday's show. A defensive coordinator for Robert Saleh is going to be like an offensive coordinator for Brian Callahan. Saleh is calling the defensive plays. So he needs his defensive coordinator to run meetings, install the plays, install the system, install the game plan, run the film session every single week, do individual development with the players, run the defense while the practices are going on. He is essentially a teacher for Robert Saleh, and working with Saleh for 5 seasons makes him ideally suited to teach his defense. This isn't like, see, when Nick Holz was hired, one of the concerns that I had was him and Brian Callahan hadn't worked together in quite some time. It's not like Nick Holz was on the Cincinnati Bengals coaching staff with Brian Callahan and knew what Brian Callahan wanted like the back of his hand and could teach it himself like he was Callahan. No. He was working with Jacksonville and never worked with Brian Callahan since like 2015 or when they were in college together working for Brian Callahan's dad at Nebraska. So this is a guy who isn't a play calling defensive coordinator, but actually knows Robert Saleh's defense, the way he teaches it, the way he coaches it, how he wants it installed. So Tony Oden is going to stay on. Now the question becomes, is Tony Oden going to be the defensive coordinator? We have not got confirmation of that yet. He could just stay on in his current role as defensive back coach and passing game coordinator. That could be the case. But I think personally that there's a pretty good shot that Tony Oden will be the defensive coordinator because you don't need a play calling defensive coordinator when Robert Saleh is going to be calling the plays. Now, those are the two that were fired, Dennard Wilson and Nick Holz, that we know about. The two that were staying is Bones and Tony Oden, but I will continue to push for Luke Stocker, the Tennessee Titans tight end coach. I will continue to push for him to be retained. Stocker has done great work with the Titans' young tight ends. Gunnar Helm praised him in an interview for what he had done, and according to Paul Kaharski in a report, Luke Stocker actually had a lot to do with the changes the Titans made in the run game late in the year that allowed them to run the football. And I think it's interesting when you start to connect some of these dots. Oh, Luke Stocker was actually mostly responsible for the Titans' run game renaissance, which is what I called it when I made my film video on the run game. And Gunnar Helm is saying he's a great coach, not only for the tight ends, but for the whole offense. And then Jeffrey Simmons, in his podcast interview with Bussin' with the Boys, is saying, why couldn't we run the football like this all year? That's how you protect your rookie quarterback. Like, we should have been running the football the way that we did at the end of the year, at the beginning of the year. Why were we passing so much? Why were we in shotgun so much? Well, if Big Jeff was happy with the run game evolution at the end of the year, and Gunnar Helm is giving praise to Luke Stalker, and Kaharski is reporting that Stalker had a big hand in changing the run game at the end of the year. Why would you not want to keep that guy around? So Stalker is a guy who I really, really hope that the Tennessee Titans keep, but we don't have confirmation on that yet. But according to the report, it is still a possibility. He hasn't been let go as of this time. But with that being said, you guys can stop panicking. Robert Saleh was officially hired by the Tennessee Titans, and we got some good comments from a lot of people, but I think what's most interesting is someone who we did not hear from, and that's Chad Brinker. Do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. The NFL postseason is in full swing, and there's nothing like being at the game. The crowd noise, the energy, cheering alongside other fans. Watching at home is great, but being in the stadium hits different. The frustrating part has always been getting tickets, waiting in queues, dealing with logins, watching prices change right at checkout. That's why Game Time gives the advantage back to fans. It's the hack for unlocking amazing NFL tickets and experiences in just a few taps. I buy all my tickets on Game Time. NFL, NBA, WNBA, MLB. I've done concert and comedy tickets on Game Time because they have the best features in the industry. Panoramic view from your seat, upfront pricing, all backed by the Game Time guarantee. Take the guesswork out of buying NFL tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today and get back to being there live. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Every game day during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action, because right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. Each game day, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts so you can apply them to the bets that you like the most. The boosts give you more juice on the bets that you already like instead of forcing you to bet on something new. Every play feels bigger, and the boosts make the bets feel that way too. Make your picks, then apply your profit boost to go for even bigger payouts while the playoffs keep rolling. Visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day. Titans fans, let's cap off today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. We broke down how Robert Saleh wants Kliff Kingsbury as part of his prime offensive coordinator candidates. We talked about Nick Holz, Dennard Wilson getting canned, Bones and Toady Oden being retained. But now, I just want to put everybody at ease. If you didn't see it, Robert Saleh was officially hired by the Tennessee Titans. There was a little bit of panic I saw out in the fan base, like, why haven't the Titans announced this? Why hasn't there been a press conference? Where's the social media post? All that different stuff, and I'm glad that we could finally all put that to bed. I put out a little short video on Thursday afternoon, kind of, I had been hearing and seeing that, the announcement was going to come soon. A bunch of local people saying, hey, it's going to get announced soon. So felt pretty good about telling you guys just to take a chill pill. It's all going to be all right. You know what I mean? And then around maybe 4 o'clock Eastern time, something like that, the Titans made the official announcement. Adams Strunk, Robert Saleh, Mike Borgonzi all made statements and everything like that. And I want to read those statements to you guys, but I find it interesting. We didn't get a statement from Chad Brinker. And this is another example of Chad Brinker taking a step back. A lot of you guys didn't like Brinker. He's a snake. He's a this. He's a that. They need to get rid of Chad Brinker. He is not a guy who is releasing a statement for the Titans now. That is an actual sign and proof that Chad Brinker is taking a step back, and he's nothing more than, a lieutenant to Mike Borgonzi. If Chad Brinker was still viewed as a heavy hitter decision maker in the organization, he would have made a statement as well. He made a statement when Brian Callahan was hired, or not Brian Callahan, Mike Borgonzi. He was in the press conference. That's done. Brinker's not going to be doing press conferences anymore. Maybe he might do like the draft and stuff like, some auxiliary ones. But when the Titans sit down with Robert Saleh, I do not think that Chad Brinker is going to be up there. It's going to be it's going to be Mike Borgonzi, and it's going to be Robert Saleh, the GM and the coach, as it is supposed to be. So I just want to point that out before we go into the statements of the guy who didn't give a statement is Brinker. And I think that that is confirmation and proof that he truly is taking a step back to be out of such a public-facing role for the Titans. And it confirms what my theory was on the situation. Here's what happened. Mike Vrabel did not want Ran Carthon. He knew Mike Vrabel was right. He knew that Ran Carthon was not ready, was not a hard enough worker, was not prepared to be a general manager. I think that there was NFL influence to get Ran Carthon hired. He is the only guy who ever got hired from the NFL's accelerator program, and now they barely even do the accelerator program because it didn't have any success. And Ran Carthon is the face of that program, and it was an absolute disaster. So Brinker was hired, and he probably went to Amy Adams Strunk and said, Ran Carthon is not it. This is not good. You can't do this. And then when she fired Ran Carthon, she had no one to trust. She had no one to ask football questions to. She had no one to lean into. And there was nobody else but Chad Brinker. So Brinker assumed a role that he never wanted to have. He never wanted to be the public-facing voice of Tennessee Titans football. Brinker didn't want that role. That's not where he's comfortable, okay? But he had to get Mike Borgonzi on board. And then Amy Adams Strunk is like, well, I trust you because you just helped me navigate this difficult time. I don't know Mike Borgonzi all that well yet. And then after a year of Mike Borgonzi proving that he's worthy, now Brinker can take that step back to where he wants to be, and Amy feels comfortable with Mike Borgonzi running the show. That's what happened. Whether you want to believe it or not, that is 100% the way this played out. So all of this that we see today kind of confirms that for me. Now, statements. Robert Saleh said this: it is a tremendous honor to serve as the head coach of the Tennessee Titans. I want to thank Amy Adams Strunk, Mike Borgonzi, and Chad Brinker, they did mention him there, for trusting me to lead this football team. Our connection and shared vision during the interview process was immediately evident and reinforced my desire to be a Titan. This is where I want to be. This is where I want to be. We're not at the level that we need to be as a team. And a part of my love of this game is getting better every day and doing it together. We will be deliberate in everything we do. Championships are won by people, and we have the right people to construct a championship caliber program. Finally, I want to thank and recognize the San Francisco 49ers, York family, Kyle Shanahan, blah, 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 all that. Thank you. And then he says, my family is fired up to join the Titans and this special community. Let's get to work, in bold. Love that. And then Mike Borgonzi had this to say: on behalf of the entire Titans organization in Nashville, I am thrilled to welcome Robert Saleh as our head coach. Robert embodies the fundamental values of what we believe a Titan should look like and represent. He's smart, tough, dependable, and values working with people. His innate ability to lead and respond to adversity is what makes him the right person to lead our football program back to one whose identity embodies sustainable success. We understand the urgency to win and believe this is a step in that direction with a coach best equipped to accomplish our goals, and the work has just begun. But I'm grateful for this partnership and excited to build this together. And finally, Amy Adams Strunk said, we're delighted to welcome Robert and his family to the Titans and firmly believe he is the right person for our team and community. We immediately connected with his competitive spirit, detailed approach to developing our players and team. Also, Robert's recommendations from across the league were overwhelmingly positive and were only reinforced during our time together. I want to thank Mike Borgonzi for his leadership during the process and acknowledge the work done by the search committee. They dedicated so much time and effort, and I am thrilled with the results. And most importantly, I believe Titans fans will be too. Congratulations to Robert and his family, and welcome to Nashville. Again, she said, I want to thank Mike Borgonzi for his leadership. No mention of Chad Brinker. Now, I also want to say this. The reason that this took so long, guys, is because there's so much happening behind the scenes. Who's going to get fired on the current coaching staff? Who are we going to retain? What is my contract going to look like? Offset language, where if the Titans fire Robert Saleh and he goes and gets hired by somebody else, the Titans don't want to pay his salary. His new team should be paying his salary, just like with Mike Vrabel and Brian Daboll. It's very common around the league. I can already tell people are going to jump in the comments and be like, oh, they're trying to prepare if they have to fire him quick. Everyone does this. Everyone, the Bears did it with Ben Johnson. The Jags did it with Liam Cohen. The Patriots did it with Mike Vrabel. Offset language is common in almost every industry, and especially in the NFL with player and coaching contracts. So, how much power do I have? How much money do I have for my assistants? What about, my office? What about the team plane? Can I use the team charter? There are so many little details that have to be ironed out with these contracts between the lawyers, the team's lawyers, all of that different stuff that it takes a little time. Now, Robert Saleh's press conference will be next Wednesday. He's got a family event that he was already committed to. He's got 8 kids. Shooters shoot, baby. Let's go. I mean, he is getting it done right there, fielding a baseball team out there. That is impressive work, but he wants his entire family to be at the press conference, and they have a family commitment this weekend, and the snow is going to be real bad. Everybody be safe out there. If I don't have a show out on Sunday, it might be because I don't have power or internet or something like that. That is a real possibility. Knock on wood, cross your fingers, but everybody be safe out there with this snow hitting. It's going to be a lot. It's going to be crazy, but either way, that is a massive day of news for the Tennessee Titans, breaking it all down. Make sure that you guys join the Everydayer Club. Again, promo code SALEH, S-A-L-E-H, for your first month free. Check it out. Great group chat activity. I'm going to be prioritizing mailbag questions in there, doing private, live video streams in there with you guys. You get access to Tennessee Locked On Titans merchandise and ad-free versions of the podcast. Again, it's like a cup of coffee. Basically, you're buying me a cup of coffee every month, and you get massive access and perks to the show. So make sure that you go to lockedontitans.supercast.com and become a true Hall of Fame Ring of Fire everydayer. But with that being said, that's going to do it for me today, folks. As always, I am your host, Tyler Rowland, and this was Locked On Titans.